are again, and just about another 100,000 miles on here. It's real close to turning over 800,000 miles now. It's at 999.3, and so it'll be over there in a bit. Outside of just what I would call odds and ends, the only thing I've had to do with this, I ran it really hot one day coming back from Oklahoma July the 5th. It was 106 degrees outside, and I ended up running it over 100 miles. Here we go. It's turning over 800,000 right there. 800,000 miles. Another 100,000. 800,000 miles on this thing. And I've just had next to no problems with it. When it had about 400,000, the only problem I've had when it had about 400,000, I ended up running it over 100 miles. It was July the 5th. Coming back from Oklahoma, we'd gone down there to see our son and his family. They lived near Tulsa. And on the way back, just before we got back to Joplin, Missouri, getting ready to head north on Highway 71, the air conditioner quit running. Well, it was bright daylight. I didn't see any warning lights, and by the time we figured out what had happened, well, I actually didn't figure out what had happened until I'd stopped at Harrisonville, 100 miles from Joplin. It was just hot, hot, hot. I'd seen the red light finally, and pulled over at Harrisonville, and the serpentine belt was busted. And of course, that drives the air. Not only drives the air conditioning compressor, but it drives the water pump and the alternator. Everything. It's just that single belt. And so I popped the hood and found out I didn't have a serpentine belt anymore. It was just shredded. And so I went over to O'Reilly's, was still open, got another serpentine belt, put it back on there. Seemed to start right up, which surprised me. I figured it probably wouldn't even start, but it did. Went to back out, hit the air conditioning button, and the belt flew up again. So that's when I realized the air compressor had locked up. That's what had caused the original problem with the belt. And so just came back and had my mechanic friend Randy Bloom fix it, put on a new compressor when we got back to Lincoln. Anyway, it started using a little water after that, and a couple 100,000 miles later, I did have to end up changing the manifold gasket and the head gaskets. Randy had warned me way back when it happened. He said, boy, he said, as hot as that obviously was, he said, you can't have any gaskets left. He said, you better have me change those. Well, I should have had him change it when he put the new air compressor on, but I didn't. And so eventually, about 250,000 miles later, they did go out. I had to have him replace them. But it was kind of a blessing in disguise, because it allowed me to see the condition of that engine. At about 675,000, when he finally changed those out, or maybe 650,000, when he took the manifold gasket off, it looked like it had already been steamed out. It was just so absolutely clean, almost unbelievable. And then when he took the heads off for the head gasket, you could see on the cylinder walls, you could still see the crosshatch marks on the cylinder walls. There was virtually nowhere at 675,000, and I guess that's why even at 800,000, it doesn't use any oil yet. I mean, it's not burnt oil, and so obviously there's no wear yet in the engine. And I've been the reason for that, I've been very faithful. I've used the Convoy oil since I think I put the Convoy oil in it when it had about 1,000 miles on it. Dropped the braking oil out, put in Convoy, and I've always used Fuel Mate Plus in the gasoline. I've been very faithful. Every time I fill up, I add the recommended amount of Fuel Mate Plus, just an ounce for every 10 gallons. And I'm sure when I ran it so hot back around 400,000 miles, that if I hadn't had the Convoy in the lower part of the engine, the Fuel Mate in the upper part of the engine, it probably would have burned up the engine. And when Randy saw it after he finally put the head gaskets in, you could see on the cylinder walls there was actually black streaks on those cylinder walls. He said, Ben, he said, that obviously got so hot He said, you should have transferred metal from the walls to the rings and from the rings to the cylinder walls. He said the only thing that held that together was convoy and fuel mate. Just made enough of a difference that it made all the difference, and there was virtually no damage except the gaskets. So once again, here we are, 800,004 miles right now. But I think it's a tremendous testament to the Conklin lubricants and conditioners. And I do run in the rear end of the transmission, every place, the safe in the radiator to keep it from corroding. The secret, I guess the secret to the long life so far of this engine is the fact that with the Conklin lubes and conditioners, one can just keep the system, be it the crankcase, gearbox, hydraulic system, cooling system, whatever it is, you can keep them extremely clean and extremely well lubricated because of that polar molecule that Harry Conklin invented so many years ago. But anyway, there we are, 800,005 miles now on this 1994 Suburban. And incidentally, not to drag this out, but I really did not intend to keep this vehicle over a year. My original intent was to trade every year, but I came back in 95, and the 95s didn't have the outside armrests on the front seat like this one does. I really like those, so I thought, they'll bring them back in 96. So I went back in 96, and I could have traded for $5,000, which I thought was reasonable, but they didn't have the outside armrests on the 96. So I waited another year. 97 went back, same story. So I thought, well, and by that time this one had about 100,000 miles on it. Probably wasn't really worth much as a trade-in. So I thought, I'll just keep it for a while. And I'm still driving it. Incidentally, I use the Rhino grease on the front end. All the front end parts are still original at 800,000 miles. All the front end parts are original. So again, Rhino grease is just another one of Conklin's incredible lubes and conditioners. So I don't know how long I'm going to drive this. I guess I'll probably just drive it till it blows up or something. But anyway, there you are again, 800,000 and what do we got? 800,006 miles. So that's the story so far on this 94 Suburban.